Welcome back, Tangerines.
If you're new to our channel, my name is Maddie, this is Jordan, and together we are Tangerine Travels. We're an American couple who normally lives in Mexico, but today we are in Barcelona, Spain.
Okay, so we didn't exactly go from Puerto Morelos straight to Barcelona. First, we had to take a cab to the Cancun airport, then we flew from Cancun to Detroit, then from Detroit to Las Vegas, where we spent 4 nights. From there, we went back to Detroit, to Fort Lauderdale, up to New York City, and then finally to Barcelona. So, needless to say, we had a lot of flying we had to do. And I was so thankful to have an Audible subscription because I listened to books pretty much the whole way. Audible is one of the best things I spend my money on. Investing in my education is one of the best things I can do. If you would like to get an Audible subscription, you can sign up for a free trial with the link in our video and you'll get a free audiobook of your choice. And even if you cancel, you still get to keep the book.
We're in Barcelona, Spain.
Overlooking the beautiful city behind us here.
And the ocean, and cathedrals galore. Oh my gosh, this city is picturesque as it gets. But that's not what we're talking about today.
We've been in Barcelona for almost a week now. And what are we talking about today?
Well, Barcelona is a place unlike any that we have ever been to. So naturally, there were a lot of things that surprised us or shocked us or were totally unlike what we were expecting. So that's what we're going to tell you, with the absolute biggest shock to us coming at the end of this video, so stick around.
The first surprise for me came before we even got here, and that was when you told me the main language here is not Spanish.
Yeah, so before we go to any place, we try to do as much research as possible so that we don't show up and have like unnecessary shocks. But one thing I found in that research was that Catalan is another language spoken here in Barcelona, and that's what you'll often see on signs and what people speak. It sounds similar to Spanish, but it's not quite, and don't you dare say that it is a dialect of Spanish. They don't like that. For our time in Barcelona, we spent it mostly in the Gothic Quarter, and something that really surprised me was how much graffiti there was. And you'll see some of it during the day, but you'll especially notice it at night when all the shops and the restaurants pull down their garage doors. They are completely covered in graffiti. It is insane, and it's everywhere.
The next thing that absolutely shocked me was how many freaking tapas there are. Tapas, 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 tapas everywhere. What are tapas? They're like appetizers, except that's a different word for them.
And it's a big part of the culture here in Spain. Something that's different though is, especially in Barcelona, the more touristy the area, the less free they're going to be. In fact, you probably won't be able to find any free tapas at all, and how it generally works in other places, like Madrid for instance, is that you order a drink and they bring out a tapa for you to eat with that drink.
Really? I'm wondering if it's actually a huge part of the culture or if it's just that tourists are looking for tapas, so everywhere sells them. I'm not sure which came first.
The next thing on the list is food allergies. When I'm traveling, I'm often pretty concerned about what I'll be able to eat in a new city because I can't eat gluten and I have a few other random allergies as well. But here, it is very allergy friendly in Barcelona, and they seem to take it very seriously. If you tell them that you have an allergy, they'll make sure that it's prepared separately and that everyone in the kitchen and everyone knows what's going on in regards to allergies. Often on a lot of menus, you'll have the wheat symbol, or whether it's soy-free or nut-free or has those things. So I thought that was really cool, and I've had no problem navigating my food allergies here in Barcelona.
Except for that there's bread everywhere.
Except for everywhere is bread, but there's been a lot of gluten-free bread, so.
This is one thing I'm probably going to get some crap for, but that is, I couldn't help but notice how many attractive people are here. I don't...
Leave me alone.
Walking around, I don't know if it's the locals that I'm noticing or just tourists coming, but yes, very many attractive people.
Very many?
Very much. attractive people.
Wow, very English. Very English is your first language. Also the age of people too. I think this probably is a popular destination for 20-somethings to come travel to.
Yeah.
But it's a very young crowd for the most part. Okay, this one was not already on our list, but I'm throwing it on there anyway. There are so many motorcycles in this city. You would not believe how many outtakes we already have in this video from a loud-ass motorcycle driving by in the background. This is motorcycles! And I know why there are so many motorcycles. The streets and even between the buildings are so narrow and parking is so limited. It's a smart vehicle to have for many reasons, economically speaking, spatially speaking, parking and all that, but it sure does make for a lot of background noise and a whole lot of extra noise throughout the city.
So let's talk about restaurants. I don't think I've ever been anywhere that required a reservation pretty much everywhere, especially if you want to go to a restaurant on the weekends.
And if you don't have a reservation, you're probably going to be looking at waiting at minimum 30 minutes, but more like an hour to 90 minutes, perhaps even more if it's prime time.
Why do you need a reservation everywhere? It's not there's a shortage of restaurants, but it's that real estate is so expensive. They shove as many tables into the restaurant as they can, but it's still not a very big area. So you're sitting right next to the table next to you. So you could almost share a plate with the person at the table next to you.
And they're so close together that getting into the table, like if you're on the booth side, you really have to suck it in and try to not knock the wine glasses and tapas off the table next to you. And the last thing about restaurants that really surprised us was the tipping culture. So we are from the US, which means tipping 15 to 20% is very common and you do it all the time. So coming to a place like this where tips are not expected is just really strange. It feels weird not to leave anything. And the whole time we were here, the majority of the time we're paying with a credit card. When we would pay with card, they never asked us if we wanted to add a tip on there, and there was never a line for us to add a tip and then total it up either. We have seen a few people leave like 1 to 2 euros. Also look like foreigners, so perhaps people who didn't really know the tipping culture, and I'm sure no one's going to decline a tip if you felt like they gave you exceptional service. There was even one time where someone had left just like pocket change on the table. The waitress actually came by, cleared the entire table, and left money there. Which is something I read online, that if you leave change, they might even think that you forgot your money and go running after you, because that's how not common it is to tip here. So what is next on our list? That is how loudly people seem to talk here in Barcelona. This is so much different than when we were in Lima, where I felt like often I couldn't hear what people are saying because they were talking so timidly and they're very much more meek and to themselves. Here people project, like maybe because they have to, because the city is pretty darn loud on its own, but in restaurants and stuff they are totally not afraid to let their secrets be known to the world, whether that's someone at the table next to you or the waiters and waitresses. It's just people are very confident when they speak here.
One thing that really shocked me, and this is a bad one, is that people litter like it's their job here. I can't even count how many times I've seen people throw their trash on the ground, throw their cigarette butts, their Burger King wrapper down an alley. Surprisingly to me, the city remains reasonably clean, but we've seen that that's because there's like 1 million people employed in cleaning up the city. Multiple times a day, garbage trucks are coming by and street sweepers that suck up all the cigarette butts and all other trash on the ground.
I would like to say, in some people's defense, I do not condone littering, but there aren't really trash cans. There's nowhere to like put the trash on a lot of streets, so it's like there's no cans or bins or anything. What do you do with it? I hold on to it until there's an opportunity, but like if you're walking around for a while, I get how that becomes a habit for people. The next thing, and perhaps my absolute favorite thing about Barcelona, is that it is so picturesque and beautiful. The architecture is amazing. You almost literally cannot point a camera in any direction without capturing an absolutely stunning picture. The city is filled with so much history, and the buildings reflect that in the most beautiful sense.
I was thinking the great architecture might just be in the Gothic Quarter, which is where we're staying and was recommended for us to stay, but we got outside of there and the buildings continue to be just as beautiful. I love the balconies overlooking the streets. It's gorgeous everywhere.
The next thing was a pretty big surprise to me because when I researched what to wear in Barcelona, it came up with things saying that it's a very conservative city, so if you don't want to look like a tourist and you want to blend in, you should be covering up as much as possible. So much to my surprise, we got here and people were wearing crop tops, short shorts, and short skirts. Perhaps those people dressing like that, they could be the travelers, the tourists, but it definitely doesn't seem like a place where you have to be too concerned about what you're wearing.
And it's especially not conservative at the beach.
Yes, there's European bathing all over.
Yes.
Another thing is something that turned up in my research, and that is how rampant and widespread pickpocketing is. So when we came here, I was thinking, you know what, that's probably way overblown. It's probably not as bad as people said online, but we were almost pickpocketed, and just this morning we were talking to someone at breakfast who had only been here for a day, and he was almost the victim of a pickpocket who just casually ran into him when there was absolutely no one else on the sidewalk, he said, and it was early in the morning. For us, we were being followed, and when we finally stopped because we felt like the guy had been behind us for a little too long, he stopped, and then after that he ended up yelling something in another language to his friend and pointing directly at us before moving on. So I was pretty surprised by that.
Yeah, although we're not 100% sure that was a attempted pickpocket, we're pretty confident
I'm like 99% sure it was. There would be no reason for him to stop when we stopped and then point right at us while shouting to his friend. So I think that was pretty cut and dry.
We figured that he was like telling his friend, like, okay, they made me, don't go after them or something.
Yeah, they know what's up. They're on to me.
But yeah, if you're coming here, watch your stuff.
Watch your stuff.
Another thing that really shocked me was how often we're offered drugs. It's all the time. Especially if you're walking around the Gothic Quarter at night, there's these guys holding beer cans on just about every corner, and they'll be like, beer, weed, coke.
Other stuff?
Yeah.
How old am I again? Come on!
Yeah.
Increíble. Wow. So, the next... Ay, caramba. So windy today. So behind me is Gaudi's unfinished masterpiece, La Sagrada Familia, but that has nothing to do with this next one that was a surprise to me. As we're traveling through Mexico, I do tend to get a lot of stares because I have tattoos kind of all over the place. So I figured it would be the same thing here because it's another society based in Catholicism, very conservative, or so I thought. There are tons and tons and tons of people who have tattoos, so I never got any special looks for having them myself. Okay, we just took the metro from La Sagrada Familia to Plaza Catalunya, and we are at this bench. Jordan is sitting, but I'm not, because the next thing on the list is the smells in Barcelona, especially when you go down those really skinny between building like alleyway looking places, which aren't always actual alleyways. They can have shops and restaurants and cafes. Sometimes, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's not just the smell of trash. Like right here, it smells like piss.
Yeah, so I was about to sit down and I was like, this smells like I don't want to sit here. Because whether it's animals or humans, we've seen an actual human going to do the thing.
Right outside of our Airbnb, in the alleyway.
We call it pissing alleyway.
And it doesn't smell bad everywhere, but in some places, it's nasty.
It's like the actual worst. So the whole city, we're not trying to say that Barcelona stinks.
No, that's not the case at all.
Not the case, but in some places it's horrid. So watch out, watch your nose. Your senses will be assaulted.
And as we're walking through this popular tourist attraction at Plaza Catalunya, we're reminded of the next thing on our list, and that is the people.
There are so many people, and of course we were not oblivious to this before coming to Barcelona. Barcelona is a huge, huge tourist destination for people all over the world, but it's one thing to read about how many people there are, and it's a whole other thing to come here. Oh gosh, there's so many pigeons. There's so many pigeons.
And how about pigeons?
I mean, it's one thing to read about it, and there's another thing to get here and experience it, and it's just like, whoa, there are a ton of people. You're shoulder to shoulder. That combined with the whole pickpocketing thing makes for an interesting dynamic, and me as an introvert, I don't really dig it. I don't like being around crowds of people. That's not where I get my energy. So yeah, that was a little bit of a shock, like being around so many people, especially when you go to the tourist attractions, especially when you're on La Rambla, places like that. Tons of people. Oh my gosh. Next on our list is that it's a big city. It is loud and the sound carries. It seems like because a lot of the buildings are very close together and they're pretty tall buildings, all the noises from skateboarders, carts, people walking, drunk people yelling. There are a lot of drunk people yelling. It happens like it's like 24/7. The sound reverberates off of all the buildings, and so it's just loud like all the time, and that was a little bit of a surprise. Again, maybe we should have expected this because it's a big city, lots of tourism, lots of things happening.
And motorcycles!
And motorcycles! Does it feel like the walls are caving in on you?
Yes. Something about the city is it was built long, long ago, long before there were cars. I think they were mostly concerned with horses getting through, so they put the buildings very close together.
Or maybe carriages. Horse and carriages.
Maybe.
Here's another one. Oh jeez, don't hurt yourself. The surprise is that there are some streets that are super, super narrow. And the even more surprising thing is that when you're walking down some of these that look like total walking streets sometimes. After seeing us and possibly that we were holding a camera, this guy stopped dead in his tracks, then yelled to his friend and motioned towards us. So we went and hid in his store for a few minutes to make sure he wasn't going to follow us, went up and down some random streets, and continued on. But I think the crazier thing than these small alleyways is that sometimes you'll be walking down them thinking that it's a pedestrian street, and then a car will be coming up behind you, just like a very, very tiny car, wanting you to get out of the way. It's like, how can it even fit? There's like the inches on each side, and why are they going there in the first place? Crazy. Alright, so we're back at our Airbnb now, sitting on this cool balcony that we have attached to our room, and we're leading up to the very last biggest shock that we had when we came to Barcelona. But well, it's not quite a runner-up. This is just the second to last one. You want to share?
Yeah, so we've been to Europe a couple times before, and this is our fourth city. I assumed coming to Barcelona, everyone would be speaking Spanish, or well, after I found out it was Catalan, I figured everyone would be speaking Catalan.
Or Spanish.
Yeah, or Spanish. It turns out everyone here knows English. I don't think we ran into a single person who didn't know English. And
almost like the bigger surprising part about this to me is that it's usually how I might describe as like a middle ground language that people know, as in English is not it's their second language that they know, and that's how they meet in the middle with people who also know a different language, but because English is very common, that's the one that makes the most sense to learn. Am I explaining this well? Yeah. Okay. But it is just crazy, and it's to the point, I think, during our week here that it was like, do we try to speak Spanish to people out of respect that we're learning the language and we can communicate with them that way, or do we just go ahead and speak English because we know that's the common language that just about everyone speaks? So kind of created this interesting dynamic, and I didn't really know how to approach it, to be honest. And the absolute biggest shock that we experienced when traveling here in Barcelona was how many languages and cultures and people from all over the world there are. Of course, this is a very international tourist destination, but we sat on the sidewalk for maybe 5 minutes trying to count how many languages we could hear. We got up to 10, and there were some in that list that we had no idea. We couldn't even identify what the language was because I'd never heard it before.
You could walk by 15 different groups of people and have them speaking 15 different languages.
And probably even more, because we can't pick them all out. Like, it was, this whole time, it's like, this seems like an additional super cool element of coming to Barcelona is that you get this, like, culture bomb in a positive sense. Like, you get to experience other cultures, and from all the people that are coming here, it was just like, this is so cool.
And we've traveled a decent amount at this point, and There is no other place like it in the world that we've been to that has this much diversity of people and language.
Yeah.
It's unreal, which is probably why everyone meets in the middle with English.
Right, exactly. And that's what I was trying to explain too. It's just like there's so many cultures from all over the place, and it's been even cool too to hear people like at restaurants and on the street, they discover that they're all from the same place, and then they start talking their common language. So it's like I think there's a lot of magic in that, coming to a place like this where you have that opportunity to learn about people from other places. It makes Barcelona that much better of a place to come to. As long as you watch your shit. I mean, as long as you watch your stuff. Before you go, we would love if you shared this video with a friend who you think might enjoy it as well. And don't forget, on the end screen, we are going to link a playlist of videos that we've made in our current town, a beach town in Mexico.
And please subscribe to our channel.
And one more thing. Gong that bell if you want to be notified the next time we put out a new video.
And we'll see you soon.